So today's essential question is dealing with how we represent and solve math problems that involve multiplication. So we're going to talk about setting up equal groups of as a multiplication problem. This work began last year when the students were learning to skip count and to do repeated addition. So when they look at a group like this, they might be able to right away notice that they can count by twos. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And by that skip counting, they see that there are 10. If they had written that as repeated addition, they would see that there is one group of 2, 2 groups of 2, 3 groups of 2, 4 groups of 2, and 5 groups of 2. 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. Now, when the students write it that way, you're going to oftentimes see them do it like this. And the idea here is it's allowing the students to stay with their doubles facts until they get to that very last one, and they see that that would equal 10. Well, as we now move into the concept of multiplication, we're changing their thinking just a little bit. They're still going to use those same ideas. First thing that we need to talk about is the picture in front of you is known as an array. The students know that an array is going to be a collection of objects that are set in rows, which go across, and the columns that go down. We're not going to focus much on the columns right now. Within each row, the students are going to count how many objects there are. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if you ask the students about this array, they're going to tell you. Go ahead, students, you tell your parents. That's right. They're going to tell you that they have 3 rows of 4. I apologize for the pieces that keep popping up on the screen. Now, if we ask them to think about that in another way, if they're not doing it as an array, they could change the language and they could tell you that there are 3 groups of 4. They might simply say that they have 3 4s. If we then ask them to turn that into one of 2 expressions, they could do it as repeated addition, and they could say that it's 4 plus 4 plus 4. Or they could say that it's 3 rows of 4. 3 by 4. 3 groups of 4. The rows always come first as the students write out their multiplication problems. So let's go ahead and let's take a word problem here. I'm going to do this slowly with you and your children so that the children will be able to pause the video, do some of the solving, and then talk with you. So Susan uses 2 tablespoons of cocoa to make 1 glass of chocolate milk. She makes 4 glasses for herself and her friends. How many tablespoons of cocoa does she use altogether? So let's look at those numbers and let's decide what the numbers happen to be. So she's going to use 2 tablespoons of cocoa for each glass. Right there, that's telling us the number of objects in each group. We're going to now look through the problem and see if we can find the number of groups. Well, there are 4 glasses. 4 glasses tells us the number of groups. So if we go back to the last page and we think about it for a minute, groups here were also known as our rows. So that means that we need 4 rows to solve this problem. The number of objects is how many go into each row. Students, pause the video, finish the array. Okay, so now when they did that, we have it all set up so that they have their 4 rows or their 4 groups, and there are going to be 2 tablespoons in each group or in each row. So again, the students have made an array that demonstrates, students, what is it? That demonstrates 4 rows of 2. So if we ask them to put that into an equation, again, they're going to do one of 2 things. They could do 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. They're adding the number of objects, not the number of rows. So we have 2 objects, 2 objects, 2 objects, 2 objects equals 2, 4, 6, 8. Or they're going to set it up as multiplication. Again, notice here we put the rows first. So students, go ahead and write it. And that's right. It would be 4 groups of 2, or 4 times 2 equals 8. Okay, students, so what do we happen to see in this picture? You're right. It's an array. It has 3 rows. You are correct. 3 rows. And how many objects are in each row? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 3 rows of 5. We do that as repeated addition. Students, go ahead and take a minute and write that out. Okay, you're right. It's 5 plus 5 plus 5. Now 5s were a skip counting that the students did in 2nd grade, so they can do this one right away in their head, or if they need to count out loud. 5, 10, 15. If they were to then change this into a multiplication problem, remembering that the rows come first, we have 3 rows of 3 times 5, which again is 15. When we're looking at multiplication in this fashion, it's not the difficult concept that sometimes the students come into school thinking it's going to be. At this point, we want the students to understand that we're going to design it with an array. We want the students to understand that rows go across, and that the rows, or the groups of, will always be the first number in a multiplication problem. Why don't you go ahead now and make some of your own arrays and write down some of your own equations to go with those. Thank you, and have a good day.